Welcome to Miller Zell's Speaker Series event. Today, we are going to be talking about AI in retail. Our Speaker Series is where we bring the best and the brightest together to talk to people in the industry that have to do with retail, whether that be retail traditionally, healthcare, collegiate, or financial services. So our guest today is Dave Sutton from Blue Rhino Capital, and he's a transformational business leader. He's an author of a book, Marketing Interrupted, as well as some other books that we're going to be talking about or referencing a little bit. But today, we're going to talk about two letters, and those two letters have a huge impact on big numbers. So the first thing we're going to do is set the stage for retail on what's happening in retail that AI might be able to address. So, Dave, set the stage a little bit for what are some of the typical things that happen in retail that you think AI will be able to address.
Okay, that's a big mandate.
Yes, it is. You're welcome.
Thank you for letting me be here. I really enjoy spending some time with you guys today. I'm going to start by taking everybody back. I want everybody to kind of put yourself in a time before the internet. So think about what retail was like maybe when you were a child, or for some of the gray hairs in here like myself, maybe, when you were in high school. What was it like? I mean, a great retail experience when you walked into a Main Street shop. Some of the things that I remember is people were very welcoming, personable. I trusted the person that was on the other side of the counter. It was very local. They were very knowledgeable. They really knew their category. They knew me. They knew my family. They knew my kids' names. It was a great experience. If you think back about it, it was special. It's probably one of the things that drew a lot of retailers to want to be in retail, was the fact that they could connect with people authentically and make a difference in their community. And then the internet happened. The internet happened. And in many ways, it was probably the most transformational and disruptive thing that happened in not just in business, but in society in general. And I would argue with you that today, those two letters, AI, we're on the precipice of yet another transformational moment in time for both business and society. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about what I see as some of the challenges with that, but probably I want you to leave here knowing that I'm an optimist, and I think there's probably more upside and more opportunity for retailers to get back to that great retail experience that we remembered when we were kids or when you were a young adult. Because AI, what it represents is, quite frankly, a way to teleport back to that period of time to some extent and bring some of that back to the forefront and give us all ways to connect with consumers in a more relevant and authentic way. So actually, you can be fearful, you can be
right.
Greedy as well, a little bit about what's going on with AI right now, but personally, I'm pretty pumped up because I think it's going to be, I think we're on the precipice of something really special for retail.
I think so too, and I was thinking about the fear. There's a lot of people talking about the fear of it's going to take my job, or it's going to change the way people interact with one another, and that's true. It will, but there's something I read recently, I actually read it last night, and I thought it was interesting about back in the 1950s, talking about gray hair. I wasn't alive yet though.
You have no gray hair.
Yeah. Well, that can happen overnight. Betty Crocker came out with cake mix that you did not have to do anything except add water, and it didn't do well. And the reason it didn't do well is because people felt irrelevant, and they didn't feel important, and they didn't feel part of a process. And it was part of that making of something, the human factor of it, that sometimes people forget about. So what they did was took the egg powder back out of the mix. And what do you have to do when you make a cake now if you use mix? Crack an egg, even now. So it's interesting as we talk about AI and the fear of it, there's a human element that it still can't replace. There's a human feel to it, and there's two more examples that I'll sprinkle out as we go on, but there's two more examples of that I think help set that, hey, yes, it can do something mechanically and technically. That doesn't mean it can do something emotionally yet, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, I'll use the internet as my crutch. I remember, people were so fearful that bricks and mortar was going to be dead. Everybody probably remembers, Pets.com and eToys and Boo and all these .com businesses were going to destroy us, right? It was going to be back to the Stone Ages with all the Main Street retail. And to be honest, a lot of Main Street retail was impacted by Walmart.com and Amazon.com, but it did take a long time. But there was good reason to be fearful because it was transformational. And there were clearly winners and losers from the internet. Same thing today. I think AI represents for many of us good reasons to be fearful. I personally am not in the camp that it's going to take away our jobs. There's still going to be a need to crack eggs, right? On some of the things that we do today, especially if you begin embracing it now, not as a threat, but as an opportunity to fundamentally maybe rethink the way you do your business or the way you work as an individual. I personally believe that what the internet did for all of us was it created a new way to communicate, a new way to share information. The AI aspect of what we're seeing right now is it's a great way to automate mundane tasks and processes, and also maybe a great way to make better decisions. And I think to your point about, I call it human in the loop, I don't think AI is going to take us in a direction where humans are going to be out of the loop on important strategic decisions. Maybe we're going to be out of the loop on decisions that are mundane, kind of routine types of things that we do every day that quite frankly suck up a lot of our head capacity and don't give us time to be more creative. They require us to be more administrative. And I'm okay with that. I don't know about you guys, but that's actually, those are the types of tasks and decisions I'd like to get off my plate. But I don't see it fundamentally changing work. I think work is work, and we're going to continue to have the same sets of needs for humans to be involved in delivering value. It just maybe we'll spend more of our time on the high value-added things as opposed to the low value-added things. And if we do it that way, I think productivity is going to shoot through the roof. There's going to be a lot of great opportunities for retailers. And let's face it, I mean, I put some points up here on the slide that we're not in a great place now, right? If you really think about it, a lot of retailers are over-leveraged. A lot of us are losing. I mean, my big hot button issue right now is people don't trust us. I mean, we're losing trust. Privacy is a massive concern. We don't come across as authentic. I mean, one of the downsides of using digital marketing, which I'm a voracious user of, is that it leads to kind of very inauthentic and sometimes interruptive types of communications with our customers and our consumers. And quite frankly, people are tired of it. They're tuning out, they're opting out, they're blocking out ads. Technology's kind of come back around, and even if you're an amazing online retailer today, you've got to find new ways to connect with people. And I think AI may be an opportunity for us to do two things. One is rethink how we want to communicate in a way that gives people a reason to care, a reason to listen, a reason to want to buy from us, a reason to come back and stay a customer of ours. But more importantly, maybe a way to do that in a less interruptive way so that we're meeting people on their terms, not just pushing content, pushing messaging, pushing offers out because we have to meet our quarterly numbers.
Or because we know something.
Exactly.
I'll tell a personal anecdote and then it's time for a sprinkle.
Okay.
Last night when I was going to bed, I used Alexa for nighttime noise. Alexa, play Thunderstorm. And I said last night, Alexa, play Thunderstorm. And then it was, great, playing Thunderstorm. Would you like to try upgrading to both? And it went on for 5 minutes, and I'm like, I really just want to go to sleep to Thunderstorm. Yeah. But that was that over technology at a moment, it was 12 o'clock at night, maybe 12:30 or 12:45. But my point was, this isn't the right time for that. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. The other thing I wanted to talk about was I was reading a different article. There's also the mechanism of, again, just because you have the data doesn't mean people want to hear it from a computer or from a chatbot or some of those other things. There was a study done about how people want to get information, and this has to do with financial services and customer service. Mm-hmm. They want to get good news from a human, and if it's bad news, they don't care whether it comes from a chatbot or from a human. But they prefer to get good news from a human, and the reason that they suspect is because there's a sharing of an emotion there. There's a celebration and there's a validation that that person said yes to you. So it's interesting that things like you were talking about, human in the loop. There's a whole study now being done about AI and our emotions and how you weave the humanness into it rather than them being so separate. So it's interesting to be reading about all that happening now.
Yeah, I think fundamentally, you know, and I love your example of the, you know, Alexa. I don't want to hear the rain shower right now. I have a story I tell. Like my wife and I have an Alexa at home, like everybody probably in the room does, and I swear she's eavesdropping on us.
Of course.
Because, you know, we'll have a conversation about, you know, well, we really need to, you know, get some new dog toy or whatever it is that we're talking about. And the next thing you know, you open up your mobile device and someone's retargeting you. Mm-hmm. I mean, that can't be coincidence, right? That's and that's the ultimate creepiness, I think, of some of these things. And we can talk more about that. But I do feel like there's an opportunity in so many different dimensions of the retail customer experience, but we have to be really cautious about it because, like this slide says, there's an AI for everything, right? It doesn't mean you need to use it, right? There's a lot of things we can do with, and I'm gonna go into a little bit more detail on this in a minute, but having a human-like experience at the right time, but it's a chatbot or a machine. By the same token, making sure it's a human-to-human experience when it needs to be human-to-human. There's a whole range of combinations there that I think the opportunity for retail in particular is that we get to design that. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think it, and this is a little, I'll go back to my comparison with the internet for a second. A lot of things were, if you think back, were out of our control with the internet because all of a sudden you had to I call it keeping up with the Joneses of technology. It's like, oh, you got a CRM, I got to get a CRM, right? And before you know it, everyone's got a box of technology that says CRM on it, and there's no more competitive advantage associated with it. And the internet led to a lot of that kind of behavior. AI, I think, is going to be a little different because you have to look first inside. Like, what is our business? What are we really trying? What are we good at? What are we not so good at? How can we use AI to essentially magnify the good and maybe, you know, shine a light away from what we're not so great at? And I think if you use it in that way, we're going to see that the combination of how people deploy technology will reinforce competitive advantage, and to some extent will make it easier for consumers to make better decisions on their side, because they'll know the kinds of firms and the kinds of places they want to shop with. So I do think it's going to be a little different this time, but it's also going to require us to be a little more skeptical maybe of what's real and what's hype and what's fiction when it comes to AI.
So let's talk about the hype and the infiltration of AI now. I think I'm starting every sentence with I was reading an article. And it was talking about 74% of companies that were interviewed for this believe that AI is going to have a huge impact on their business next year. So 74%, it's already November, next year. The next down was 39%, so that gives you the chasm between, and that was automated robotics, right? So 39%, so that chasm, people are believing in AI, but this is the thing I found interesting about it is 71% are going to implement something. So, right, 74 believe huge impact, 71% are going to implement something, only 1 to 2% know what or how. I'm going to do it. So it kind of goes back to what you were saying,
right.
And this is where we can start to get a little more tangible for retail is what should some of those things be, or where do you start, or where do you, as we were saying before, where do you put that toe?
Yeah, and I'll give you another little data point because I love that story. I mean, people, it's like hype, right? I mean, everybody wants to get on that bandwagon. They don't know where to get on the bandwagon. And part of our conversation today, I'm going to point to some things where I think you can begin to dabble and learn and maybe bring some of this stuff to life for your business. But another little factoid, and this is where I think people intuitively know this, even if you're just a novice with playing around with ChatGPT, there are massive productivity opportunities here. We were having a conversation before we started today that, just writing a recommendation letter for someone to get into a college or creating a little, I have a friend of mine, it's a terrible story to tell, but and I won't name any names, but he had to write an obituary for a friend, not a parent, fortunately, but a friend, and he didn't even know where to start, so he used ChatGPT to write his obituary in 5 minutes before he had to stand up and deliver an obit. I mean, that's
Wait, he waited 5 minutes before?
Yeah, he did it. Well, he was kind of caught off guard a little bit, like a lot of things. A lot of times, if you've ever been, we're all getting older. If you've ever been to a funeral, you don't know who's really going to have to be called upon to get up on stage and say a few things, say a few nice words about Sister Tina. And the challenge for him was, well, well, and he's sitting with his mobile phone. He's like, I got to do something. I got to get up and tell a couple of
The
stories.
glass is clinking, and he's like,
Yeah. So I mean, it is, Microsoft has been doing a lot, as everybody in this room knows, a lot of work in this area, and they're about to launch Copilot, which I think everybody probably is familiar with, which will put AI into Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams, every one of the applications. And some of the early adopters that have been playing around with this are big companies that they've already figured out that just by having AI in Word as an available resource, it's saving people anywhere between 5 and 10 hours a month.
Yeah.
5 and 10 hours a month. Now that may not sound like a huge number, but think about it. If you've got, let's say, I don't know, a creative director in your business that's making $50 an hour, right? Basically, Copilot will pay for itself in a month, right? Even if they're charging you $30 a month for that license. I mean, the ROI on this is going to be amazing, and it's also going to be one of those things where you're either using it consciously or unconsciously. Mm-hmm. It'll be there. It'll be with you.
It will be. The other day, I can't remember what program I was in, but I hit reply, and there was a prompt that says, use AI for your reply.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I want it.
Yeah.
Well, maybe.
That's the creepy part.
Right,
That's a little creepy part. Yeah, obviously you want to have usage of it on your terms as opposed to somebody kind of dropping in and interrupting your workflow. But I think there's some really interesting. I was going to talk about 5 examples that I thought retailers should pay attention to.
Yep.
And again, it goes back to my frame of reference of if we could get back to the good old days before the internet, what would you want AI to be able to help you with? So if I wanted it to be more personable and I wanted it to be more trusted, more authentic, I think the whole area of conversational commerce right now is exciting to look at. And it's not because you want a machine to necessarily do the interactions with people. This is not just about efficiencies. Because we've had machines, by the way, for years as chatbots and call center feedback loops and things like that. This is a little bit deeper because where the technology is headed is it's going to give us the ability to translate, text into speech, but speech in different languages, speech with emotion and empathy tracks built into it. So it's going to approach human-like interaction, human-like conversation. And I think for certain types of interactions, you may be better off with a machine that's got your brand promise and your brand essence baked into its code than, and this is going to sound terrible, but a shop person who has just come in, they've never been trained, and you're putting them on the front lines working with people. I might bet on the machine for certain types of interactions, right? And I'm not saying that's going to replace everybody in the shop, but the reality is, in certain high-touch moments, you may actually prefer to have someone who's really going to know your business, know your category, know your brand.
And help train and socialize.
And help train, and also, and I think help scale. I think it's hard. Again, one of the things we learned coming out of COVID is it's hard to get people. It's hard to get talent. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that's going away, guys. I think that is part of what's going to be baked into our economy, at least here in the U.S. economy for some time to come.
We're seeing that with some of our clients. CVS is using it for training and onboarding now.
Yeah.
It's proliferate every time I'm reading something. There's always a different client mentioned, a lot of whom we work with that are already starting to infuse it, and we're starting to infuse it into our creative process. Some of the things that they were talking about, and then I do want to get into
No.
Some of the things that we're talking about is, develop a task force that's not just in IT, have it be kind of multi company so that there's a purview from different perspectives of it, and make sure you have some governance and what kind of tools to use. And so starting with those foundational things makes sense. So now let's get into what are some of the other things that retailers should be looking at?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of this conversational commerce, which, again, I think there's a huge opportunity there, but it has to be done consistent with your brand, consistent with the kind of experience that you want your customer to have. And emotional relevancy can be baked into that now, and that is different than what before AI. And again, I think there are a lot of examples in e-commerce right now that everybody knows where you can violate trust with the consumer by using technology to not necessarily be completely honest or authentic. I do also think that there's opportunities, I call it value reciprocity, which is something else that came out of the internet, was all of a sudden, we as consumers can go out and find out exactly what that car dealer paid for that car, right? Before that, You could go into the car dealership and people would smile and shake your hand, and you get talked into a deal, and you really didn't know whether what that dealer paid for the car was $10,000 or $100,000. You had no idea. Now we all know that, and so that's created tension in certain retail structures, right? Well, you could also use AI to do the reverse of that, which is, why don't we all know, we know what the demand is for certain products, we know what the supply availability is for certain products. Why don't we create win-win situations where we can dynamically price, and I got some examples later we can talk about very specifics, but a retailer could know, really, this is what the market price, and this is what the market will bear in the moment. At the same by the same token, the consumer will know that I'm not getting ripped off. Most fundamental kind of consumer mindset is, I want to get a deal, but if you go to every store and they're all the same price, we generally buy that product because we know that the price, even though those retailers are not colluding, right? We know that is the fair price for the product. And I think we're going to see AI being used more to kind of create this reciprocity between retailers as well as consumers, and not only in this category, probably across the economy. I think it'll be a huge opportunity.
And I'm looking at the depth of that, right? So it's easy to price compare. We've been able to do that for a while, but what you're talking about is to really aggregate the marketplace into what's happening, how much costs are, but it goes deeper into supply chain, demand, logistics, and all of that to kind of ladder up to make that even richer and not naive. Because sometimes that can be unfair to the retailer if all those other things are taken into consideration. So it's really nice how deep that can get for the reciprocity.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great, if you think about it, I mean, some of the biggest challenges retailers face are planning, stocking, assortment, merchandising. All of those things kind of are downstream of the consumer demand. And so if you've got better insight into what are fast-moving goods looking like, can I make forward buys on things because I'm doing a better job of predicting what I need to have in the store next month, next quarter, next year.
Predictive inventory is listed almost everywhere.
The better we get. The good news is, again, if you're thinking with a value reciprocity mindset, you're going to have a better proposition to the consumer as well. I think that's another part of this is you have to be willing to kind of, I'm not saying go completely transparent with consumers, but you need to be thinking like a consumer and creating a price experience that's going to be honest and authentic.
And then you get to the trust that you were talking about.
Exactly. And then people trust you and they know that you may not be the lowest cost, but I know when I come into your environment, I get the information I need, so I'm choosing the right things. And I'll pay a premium for that.
Right.
Or I get service with this product that I can't get anyplace else, and I'll pay for that. I'll pay the premium for that as well.
Right. So wanted to make sure we get to the bubble slide. I don't remember.
It's coming.
Right, it's coming, okay. Because
I know you love the bubbles.
I do love the bubbles.
In a glass especially.
Right, actually. I like the tangibility of that, because I'm thinking about if I'm a retailer and I'm listening or thinking about it, and we're talking about where the toe is, and then we think about the uses even across all the things I mentioned in retail. So there's retailers, there's healthcare, collegiate spaces, and financial services. I know that there's AI used in those in different areas. So for financial services, it might be, loan approval and those types of things. For healthcare, it will be reading records. All of them had chatbot listed, so there's that interaction. So where do I start?
Yeah. I'll go to the bubble slide, then maybe we'll go. I'll give you some technical.
I'm probably in the way of the bubble.
No, it's all right. No worries. You're actually in the hard to implement section.
People here might agree.
Yeah, I get this question a lot because it is also overwhelming, and it's overwhelming even if you. I live in this stuff every day. Right? It's overwhelming for me because AI is moving so fast. There's so many changes, so many new applications and new things that are coming out every day. And it's almost like you can't not get in and start swimming. It's possible to dip your toe in. I'm going to give you some examples of that, but really you almost have to kind of plunge in and just immerse yourself in this stuff because it is moving so fast, and hope you don't get swept away down river. But hopefully some of the advice I'm going to give you today will keep that from happening. The way I think about it, Tina, is, generally speaking, I like things that are, we all want home runs, right? We want the high value stuff for our business. But when you dip your toe in, you tend to want things that are easy to implement. and they may be kind of low value, right? So I call this the experimentation phase. So what you'll see on the slide here are examples of things that I think everybody today, some of you probably have already started doing some of these things, and some of you just need to start doing some of them, right? We talked a little bit about personal productivity, playing around with ChatGPT yourself, playing around with DALL-E for image production, Midjourney for image and video. Just playing with the stuff gets your brain kind of wired to seeing possibilities. And I think if the downside of not doing that is, it's not that you're going to miss out completely, but you may miss out on opportunities in your own work to actually help yourself do a faster, better, cheaper job at whatever you're doing. So
I'll give you a quick sprinkle on the GPT too. I was reading something, and 1 million people signed up in 5 days.
Yes.
So just to show the proliferation, your customers are signing up for it. They're experimenting with it, so it's okay to be leveraging it and using it. I think there is the fear factor, sure, but then there's so many people with such rapid adoption that it's something that we can look at and know that it's such a rapid adoption, more than any other technology. That's
true. It's widely adopted. It is. Everyone's playing right now, and that's a good place to be. We're in an experimentation phase, and it's going to be at your fingertips. I mean, again, depending on whether your company licenses ChatGPT for Copilot with Microsoft, or Adobe's announced Firefly. If you're a Photoshop user, there's going to be a Firefly Copilot with you on those tools. So it's going to be there. So I think personal productivity is a great place to dip your toe in and just get in the game. There's also some really easy things to implement that are, at least for me, they've always been really challenging aspects of our business, like social media. Just being able to be responsive in social media, a lot of times you're paying a team to track what's being said about you on Twitter, or track what's being said about you on Facebook. I think this is a great application area for AI, because let's face it, even when we're all on social media as humans, we sound like machines in some cases.
I saw you do this when you said humans.
Yeah, I mean, it's like social media has become sort of this playing ground where we pretend to be journalists, so we pretend to be experts on different subjects. So I think it's okay. I think it's going to be expected that we be mindful that social media is a great channel, and we need to be even more responsive than we are probably today as retailers. And so it's a great place for an application like a GPT, like a generative AI application, because you want to be responsive, and then if it needs to be escalated, you kick the human in the loop. But while it's running, nobody wants to sit and monitor. I don't care even if you love social media. Nobody wants to sit there, unless you're addicted to cat videos or something. Nobody wants to sit there and watch it. So you want to take the mindless part of it and make that a machine, and then have it escalate when it needs human interaction. So I think that's an area. Social media integration is one that most people are going to dive into, and it's actually a no-brainer. It's easy to do. It's not going to give you the most value, but it's something that I think could have a big impact long term.
It gets the toe in.
It gets the toe in, and it's something that, like I said, I don't think it's taking anybody's job away. I think it's going to be augmentative to customer service operations and things that right now are kind of a pain, to be honest, right?
Right.
So,
Did we hit the technology slide? Do we want to put that up?
We're bouncing around a little bit.
Okay, I'm just making
We're going back and forth a little bit. It's okay.
There you go.
Yeah, coming back to my five things, right? So I thought I would give you, because a lot of times it's easy to talk about this stuff and say, oh, conversational commerce. Well, I wanted to point out some things that are key technology enablers. I mean, things that are going to make this not only possible, but are going to accelerate the demand for it. So, I mean, everybody's very familiar with ChatGPT, DALL-E, all the suite of tools that OpenAI is producing right now. One that I want to highlight for you that's probably not on your radar is Valley. So what DALL-E is doing for text to image, Valley is doing basically for text to speech. So again, think about if you're writing scripts for service agents, right, or chatbots. The challenge right now is it's like you take text and it becomes a robotic answer, much like GPT would write you kind of a robotic article or something. Where Valley is headed is it's going to be true natural language text to speech. And even some of the things I've been describing about emotional content, weaving in empathy into content, being able to stylistically talk like your brand. I mean, for years as marketers, the holy grail was brand voice. right? Like, can I get everybody in the company to talk in the brand voice? You know, you go to Apple, now those Apple people talk in the brand voice, right? They're these gurus of Apple Genius Bar, right? Think about that. I mean, it's hard. It's really hard to train people, but now you could have a way to take and infuse it with empathy, brand voice, emotional relevance, right, to the audience, to the consumer.
So I'm a retailer.
Yeah.
What would be an example of a practical application of that, so I can?
I think service operations are probably customer service is the low-hanging fruit, right? Ways to get more responsive, more meaningful, more human-like responses.
Right. Instead of your order is ready, it's, hey, your
order's ready, or
whatever.
Managing a return, you know, I think, which is always, returns are always fraught with peril, right? Because you'd actually want to get information when someone returns something. You want to know why did it not fit? Was it the wrong color? But it's, for the consumer, it's frustrating.
Right.
I want my money back.
Right.
And so having an automated way to get at those types of decisions, I think those are good applications that we'll see, we're already seeing, quite frankly.
And I really like what you're saying, because I'm an avid buyer returner. Won't give you my percentage, but when you're using the interface for the returns, it is very mechanical. It is very human to machine, right?
Yes.
I feel that, but I hear you. If it became more brand voice,
yes,
and you could carry the purchase feel
right
through to the return feel, then it would complete the loop of the brand feel. So I hear what you're saying. That makes sense to me. So that not only is it collecting data that the company needs, that doesn't stop. It's not like you have to forego anything. You just have to infuse the brand into the experience on the back end.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you can, I mean, taking that to the next level, right? So some of you may have played around with tools like Synthesia, which is, it takes that text into speech and then creates an avatar, which can actually be a human avatar, if you've ever played around with it.
Wait, what?
Yes, yeah, not like Avatar the movie,
right.
but literally a human. Like, I could create a Tina Chadwick avatar and use GPT to fuel your interaction with me as it relates to a service conversation.
Right, okay, now I see what you're saying, because when we're at conferences, we see the human-like or the avatar-like,
yes,
you know, chatbots and things like that, and you know, you can see some people leaning into it and some people going,
well, yeah, again, it's like everything else. It can be creepy, right? If you're not, you know, but if it authentically represents the brand, if it's consistent with essentially the way that you want the customer to have an experience, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, right now, I still put it in the bucket of, it's a little bit of a novelty. I mean, there's been some stuff. I was at a trade show in Vegas a couple months ago, and where all the trade shows of the world are, and there were a number of people that were doing kind of robotic demonstrations where they had a robot that basically had been infused with GPT, so it could have a dialogue with you. And I remember somebody asked it a silly question like, you know, can you shake hands? And the robot was like, well, I'd love to shake your hand, but my version of my software doesn't allow me to do that.
It would be an HR violation.
But there is a new unit back in the home office that can do that. You know, I mean, it's that kind of crazy stuff that's going on right now. But
there are questions you can ask. There's a whole faction of Alexa they're crazy questions. So I'll give you this: when you go home, ask your Alexa who she's dating, who she voted for, and if she likes your outfit.
Yeah.
It's interesting, the questions.
It's there's a lot of hallucinations. That's a whole other topic we can go into as well.
Right. So back to your.
Yeah, so anyway, back to kind of some of the other, and we're not going to go through all these examples today because we don't have time, but we can do it in the after session. I think the other area that I would point to as being kind of really good opportunities for retailers is when you think about, I call it predictive connectivity, which is, it's always hard to find our consumers. Like, it's expensive. Media is expensive, right? We go out and we spend a lot of money on digital display ads. We spend a lot of money on print in some cases still. And it's kind of a cast a broad net, hope you catch fish. And I think one of the things AI is going to bring to us, in fact, it's already starting to bring to us, is more targeted and I would call it laser beam focus on getting to the right customer, getting to the right consumer. There's a tool up here I mentioned called Albert. Albert is a media buying tool. And if there's one area of the world, and this is not a slam on media buyers, but if there's one area of the world that I would say you should be worried about your job, it's if you're a media buyer. Because if your day is buying Facebook ads and buying Google AdWords, I think those days may be numbered because AI can do it a lot better. In fact, Albert, which is the example I give up here, Albert has been put to the test. With Albert, a number of large brands, companies like Nestle, have tested Albert against humans, and Albert kicks butt in terms of buying at the right price, buying and beating out everybody else for key AdWords. So I think that's an area where we're going to see massive changes because most people, let's face it, if you can give them a better ROI on media buys, through whatever mechanism, they're going to do it. And the best media buying agencies, by the way, are embracing AI and not necessarily replacing people totally, but using people to train the AI to essentially do it better, faster, and cheaper over time. So I think that connectivity piece is going to be key. And then the last one, which I think is really important, because so many retailers, this is what I love about the retail industry, we're very philanthropic. We're very much about giving back. Right? Almost every retailer that I've ever worked with has had that at kind of their core. The problem is for most consumers, they don't really care that you sponsor Make-A-Wish, right? They want you to sponsor American Red Cross, right? Or they want you to sponsor their local Boy Scout troop or whatever. So I think there's going to be a lot of growth in point of sale opportunities where people are predisposed to give back, but they want you to meet them on their terms. So as a retailer, why wouldn't you want to, there's an app up here called Shopping Gives, which is, why not have some AI help you understand when Tina is at the counter, Tina really is a strong support for Boys and Girls Club of America. Let's tee up that, right? And we can have a relationship with a lot of different philanthropies. We don't have to be just, we are a American Red Cross shop or whatever. And I think that's going to be an interesting dynamic because people want to know when they're buying something that there's maybe a matching from the corporation, or there's I'm buying a pair of shoes and there's another pair of shoes are being bought from a kid in Brazil. I mean, that's all part and parcel of the retail experience that I think AI is going to make more meaningful and authentic.
Right. I'm trying to think of our slides. Logos, bubbles.
I bounced around, didn't I?
No, I did that too.
I knew I threw you a curve. Well, you want to go to what you don't do?
Yes, I was just getting ready to say. So there's the individual fear, and then as a company, there's the fear of how do I do this? How do I do it right? What do I not do? And there's not a lot out there about what not to do. So I loved, actually, this is another slide I loved, is how do you get into AI and not stub that toe? Yeah.
I mean, I think, and maybe we can go back. I'll close with kind of the whole going back to internet thing, right? Remember how the internet, it made things a lot cheaper, made things a lot more efficient for retailers, but there were also a lot of really stupid things that were done, and what I would characterize as people that were just looking for ways to cut costs, and this is just an efficiency play. I'm gonna slam things down my consumers' throats. All those same risks are there with AI. So the human nature of making this all about cutting jobs, cutting costs, that's there. And that's one of the reasons why when you look at reports like Forrester, Gartner, everybody that's doing what I characterize as the spectator, play-by-play on what's going to happen with AI, almost every application that they highlight is operational efficiency. And that's true, right? That it will take costs out. It will make things more efficient. But if it's done in a way that's impersonal, or the consumers find to be grating or interruptive in their life, it's not going to work.
Right.
And I think the biggest way that you can make a mistake here is to lose sight of the fact that people want to have a type of customer experience. I don't care what your brand is. They've become accustomed to having a certain type of relationship with you as a retailer. And if you just all of a sudden overnight are cutting corners or using a tool because it's saving you money, they're going to know.
Right.
And they're going to vote with their feet, right?
Right. And that gets out of customer centricity. So anything you do operationally in the back office or anything should still be with the customer experience in mind.
Exactly. And you can't underestimate, I mean, humans are really intuitive. I mean, we don't give ourselves enough credit. I joke a lot with them because I write a lot, right? I blog and I write books, and it's so easy to kind of slip into laziness and just say, I'm going to use GPT to write this, right? My friend writing obituaries, right, using GPT. That's okay. I mean, there's certain things in our life that may be completely appropriate. But keep in mind, like I've started just in my own life, I can tell when something's been written by GPT. I can tell. And maybe it's because I read a lot and I write a lot, but we're pretty smart as humans. We can kind of sense when something's not really authentic, or it seems a little, for me, the tip-off is always sentence structures. Like humans, we are not actually really good at differentiating sentence structures. You know what I mean? We don't mix it up. ChatGPT is very good at it, but it also is obvious when you read it. Like this, nobody writes this well. That's BS, right? So it's that authenticity will come through, and we as humans will get more and more used to it, and all of a sudden we'll know, oh, that ad was written by GPT. Swipe right, click through,
authentic,
right? I mean, it's just
yeah.
it'll become second nature, and so there's that end of it, which is I think kind of it'll become an annoyance, and then the other end of it is people sense, like your Alexa story, it's creepy, right? It's just kind of creepy. Like there's something valuable, and I'll go back to like the old days retail. If you walked into your pharmacist and your pharmacist announced to everybody, oh, welcome back, Dave. I've got more of that, cream to take care of that rash. that is not a good thing. He had that data. He did not need to say it out loud, right? I mean, and everybody knows that's not only creepy, it's just kind of an invasion of my privacy. AI is that pharmacist, okay? That is, if they have the data, they will use it. So we as humans, I think, we have to keep our hands on the throttles and make sure that it's being used at the right time, in the right moment, in the right context, because AI is going to know a lot about you, and it could be embarrassing for the retailer that information is shared. It could be a privacy violation. There's a whole host of challenges there, but fundamentally, it's just it's also sort of common sense if you think about it. Like just because you have the data doesn't mean you need to use it.
Yes.
And when you do use it, if it's used out of context, it's going to come across as either insulting, creepy, and it's probably going to turn that customer against you to some extent.
The brand, for sure, yeah.
Yeah.
I worked for a large mobile carrier, and we were always in meetings about, okay, we have this data, we can tell, and this was a specific example, we have this data, we can tell when people have dropped their phone.
Yeah.
Because their location doesn't move, but their phone accelerates, so they would tell. So, the people in the room were like, let's serve them a ad about, breakage, and we can fix it for free, and what the next upgrade is. And we were all like, but then they're going to look around and go, how did you know I dropped?
Yeah.
So there were constant things like, this is what the data that we have. This is what it means. Here's the action we want to do. But it goes back to what you were saying about what's the vibe of that for the brand? Is it too Big Brother? Is it too? And I'm constantly having that conversation with Alexa.
Yeah.
Because if you whisper to her, she'll whisper back. To me, that's okay. You prompted it, and that interaction is okay. If I ask you to play, nighttime, sure, and you can offer premium, but not at midnight when I need it.
Right.
So again, you have to remember the human in it, and not just what the ability of the data gives you.
Exactly. Yeah, and it's being sensitive to time and place and relevancy. I mean, I want, if I'm driving my Tesla down the road, and I want Big Brother to keep me from crashing back into that truck, right? Mm-hmm. So there's relevant times when AI, you want it to be, use that data, save my life, okay? That's one end of the spectrum.
Yes,
the other end of the spectrum, is, I don't want you to use that data to tell me what kind of pimple cream to buy, in front of the pharmacist and everybody in the pharmacy. So there's that, again, so much of it, as I even am saying it myself, it's painfully obvious, a lot of this stuff. But keep in mind that a lot of times, technology is looking for a task. And I think we have to be on guard, as a retailer, you have to be on guard and say, look, I use tools for certain tasks, but I'm the arbiter of that. Mm-hmm. I'm not just going to buy a box of, Mid-Journey and turn all of my salespeople into video avatars, just because I can, right? It better fit with what your strategy is. It better fit with the structure that you have in place, and then the systems that you buy and build are supporting that. I think sometimes people get out over their skis a little bit. They buy systems without really thinking through what are the implications for structure and strategy.
Or how it fits in. We go back to your CMS example.
Yeah.
People buy,
Yeah.
So foundationally, so let's go back to, I'm a retailer and I'm like, okay, this was a lot of information about AI. There's some suggestions in there. What would be the first thing, without even looking at the technologies at all, I'm looking across my organization, where should I be looking for the, if I'm looking at it like a subway map, we do this here, we do this here, should I be looking for places for efficiency? Should I be looking for customer interaction? Should I be looking for all of that? Where should I start to look for ways that I could leverage it?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's a couple different ways. I mean, I kind of look at it through glass half full, glass half empty thinking. What I mean by that is, most retailers already have a pretty good idea what your competitive advantages are, right? So what am I really good at? And you may say, well, I'm really good at service, or I'm innovative when it comes to picking the next generation of products or the next fashion line or whatever. I'm really good at certain things. On those glass half full things, I think what you want to be looking for is, how can AI make what I'm doing better, or shine a light on it so people can tell that what I do is better.
Accelerate it.
Accelerate it. Because a lot of times I think people are really good at certain things, and they've been struggling to expose that and let people know, we are really innovative. We are always, we're the first ones that, go to market with this product, or we're the first ones that, create this type of an in-store experience. So if you're being honest with yourself, and this is truly a competitive advantage that you want to blow up and accelerate, AI can be an accelerant for that.
It's interesting that you went to find what you're good at and accelerate it versus what you're bad at and improve. Like, it's interesting that that was at first. I like that.
With intention, because I think the problem is, if you're not good at something, okay, and we're being honest with each other, there's probably a reason why you're not good at it. and there's probably something fundamentally that you need to fix. That just throwing technology on it, sometimes I joke with people, I say, AI will magnify what you're good at, it'll also magnify what you're bad at. So if you're really bad at something, if your supply chain planning or your merchandising in store is terrible, and you decide, I'm going to throw AI at it, and it's basically running against all the systems and structure that you already have in place, it'll just put you out of business faster, right? I mean, that's not going to help you, right?
Doing the bad thing faster, isn't it?
So I personally, this may be just I have a bias that I like low-hanging fruit, and I'm maybe a little bit lazy, and I like the stuff that's easier to do. But
efficient.
I would build on strength before I try to patch or band-aid broken things. I wouldn't use AI. I mean, obviously, I would start with fixing broken things to get you to a place where you can be competitive, especially if it's something that's going to really, potentially challenge or drive off customers if you're not good in certain things that you do. But by the same token, just thinking that AI is going to overnight kind of change your fundamental capabilities where you're weak, that's probably risky to do that, because again, it's probably bigger. It's a bigger problem. As my doctor would say, it's a symptomatic of a bigger underlying cause. It's not just a Band-Aid type of a solution.
No, I think that's a really good way to look at it, because it's not an elixir like that. You can't just tonic it on everything.
And it can be tempting. I mean, it is. I mean, people are always, and again, human nature. They're looking for that silver bullet. AI is not a silver bullet. It is not going to come in and kind of solve world hunger. It's not going to fix problems that you have that you've always had, potentially. So you have to look at it through the lens of, let's focus on things that we can make better and accelerate opportunities for ourselves. And if we do want to bring AI in to address, let's say, a fundamental weakness of our business, let's make sure we understand why it's weak to begin with.
Yes.
And then make a decision of whether technology is even a solution for that problem.
That's right. And I think you and I share that pretty strongly, is even if I go back to the bubble slide, we don't have to, I'm just referencing it. If we go back to all those ways you can implement in that easy to implement, whatever the impact is, there's no silver bullet in there, but each of those at a certain percent aggregated becomes significant.
That's right.
And I feel like that's per your slide, a better way to look at it is, what are the incremental improvements that aggregated work versus trying to look for one to solve everything. That's
right. That's exactly right. And I won't go back to that slide, but the other thing that I put on there was, all of this is kind of moving towards really transforming your business model.
Yes.
Right. So the internet did ultimately transform the way we thought about how people shop, right? And for a while it was, nobody's going to go to stores, they're just going to go online. For a while it was, people are going back into stores because they want experiences. But where do we land? We landed in a hybrid shopping environment, and we're going to be with that forever. That's the way. Why? Because that's the way people want to shop. I think AI is going to do the same thing. There's going to be certain types of businesses, and I can't today, I don't have my crystal ball, so I can't say in certain categories, AI, people are going to want to buy from machines. I don't know what, maybe cars, who knows, right? We will no longer actually want to talk to a human car dealer, okay? That's not that far of a stretch, but you know what I mean.
Carvana already looks like
Yeah, Carvana already is pretty close to that. But there may be certain categories where people just, it's a low touch or a low involvement kind of purchase that I don't mind buying from, Rosie from the Jetsons. Yeah.
She's kind of cute.
She's kind of cute.
And if you look I'm thinking about some of the industries that are so different than when I grew up. Car buying,
Yep.
right? There's the whole taxis.
Right.
What are those?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't think my daughter even knows what that is. It's Ubering. It's a verb.
Right.
So there's so many industries like that that are completely transformed by technology. So I would say, you're used to a taxi driver. There's still an Uber driver, but the technology is what you interact with,
Right.
and it's all happening on your phone.
Yes.
So even mattress buying, it takes the right.
Yeah.
We used to go to showrooms and jump on them and get yelled at, and then stop jumping and buy one. And now they come in a box to your house, and it's interesting how the human is taken out of that, but where I think it's been infused is in the reviews now.
Yes.
Or the front end, maybe there may be the video where you go watch other people's, but it's really about peer interaction, and that's where the human is in some of the things now that I see her, oh, well, I read the reviews and it says this. This is like,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
There's no salesperson, so when I was growing up, it was definitely a salesperson or that interaction, and now it's all different.
The power of influencers.
Yes.
Right, which we could have a whole show just about that if you want to. Next week. But be careful with that too, because we can create avatars for influencers.
Right. Right.
So, again, it has to be authentic, testimonials. And I do think you're right. You're touching on some categories that nobody really wants to go to the mattress store. Nobody really wants to go to a car dealership these days. There's friction in certain shopping environments that we all are painfully aware of. But then again, who would have thought that you would really want to go to an Apple store?
Right.
There's sort of like, and again, I haven't done the analysis on getting in the shopper's mindset, but the reality is we as humans want that interaction.
Yes.
In certain categories. And over time it may evolve. AI may create a better type of touchless experience where I can sit in my pajamas at home and buy something. But I wouldn't underestimate the fact that there's always going to be a demand for retail immersive experiences, even for some really dumb things, that you think that people just want to buy it on Amazon, and they don't. They want to go play with it.
Yeah, and I would be remiss if I didn't come in at this point, because clearly.
Was that a little bit was that a tee up?
No, I liked it. Thank you. The T-ball's right there. And
swing away.
Right. But we're wholeheartedly behind you at Miller Zell. That is core to what we do, is creating those experiences. And I like that you use the Apple Store, because if you were to say the sentence, hey, we're going to make a technology store where people are going to want to aggregate in there and have to make appointments to get in.
Yeah.
What's going to be in there? A lot of tablets and phones. I don't know if I'm going to, I don't know if I would fund that.
Yeah.
Just from the sentence of it. But if you look at it today, you have to make an appointment sometimes days and weeks in advance to get in that store.
It's incredible.
And it's the experience. And what's interesting is it's not like the Sphere. To go back to Vegas.
Yeah.
It's not like the Sphere where there's huge things to do and all these photo moments and all of that. It is about the experience of the interaction with the thing itself. Now, not every brand can get away with that or do that. I'm an Appleite, so I go into the store and I need to. But we look across our brands, and not all of them are spectacular like that, where there's opportunities for, crazy sets, lights, and stuff. Some of them, the experience needs to be, to your point, more practical or match the expectation of the person going in.
Right.
So if somebody's going into a CVS to a health hub, it's not like they need a photo moment and a runway with digital experience, but they do need privacy. Mm-hmm. They do need discreet. They do need efficient, and it has to be in the moment when they need it. So it's those kinds of things, to your point, that's the matrix of what should the experience be appropriate to what the product or interaction should or service is. And then what should it be when it needs to be fabulous and fantastic? We have a team right now that's in New York putting up an activation for a sponsorship for the marathon, and it is LED floor you walk on and kind of crazy and everything, but that wouldn't be appropriate for all of our clients. So I'm just going back to what you were saying is it's all about appropriateness. Whether it's AI or store experiences or not store experiences, it's all about the appropriateness of the interaction. And AI is something that will fundamentally help us with what that interaction is.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of kind of the work that's been done around human-centered design, which I think a lot of people know, design thinking. I mean, I think when things are designed and literally thought through from the perspective of the consumer journey on whatever thing they're buying, I think you can tell.
Yes.
Right? It's just obvious. It's painfully obvious. Somebody put the thought into this. Somebody's really thinking through what are the meaningful touch points, what are the ways that we're going to trigger certain types of behaviors, whether it's purchase intent or just smiling, right? And I think that is not going away. And if anything, AI could become a key enabler for aspects of that journey. But if you just try to throw AI at a journey map, for example, without really having the human-centered design part of it, it's just not going to work.
Yep.
It's going to look like you've bolted on, this, machine onto an aspect of what is fundamentally a human experience. And if it's irrelevant, if it looks like it hasn't been thought through in terms of how the interaction is actually supposed to play out, it's not going to work. And consumers are smart; they'll see right through it.
Right, and then it erodes the brand, hurts the brand.
It erodes the brand, and you lose trust, and people make fun of you, right? There's a lot of that, It's just that's part of the challenge, I think, with any new technology. I mean, we're all hyped up about AI right now, but I mean, I can give you dozens of examples where people have used the wrong tool for the task because everyone was telling them you got to buy a box of CRM or whatever it was at the time, and that's just discipline.
Right.
As a business leader and a retailer, you got to have a level of discipline. I tell a lot of my people that I work with, I say, is that just another bright shiny object that we're chasing, or is that legit? Is that something that's really going to help us? And I think it's good to challenge yourself every once in a while and just go, do I need to be on that bandwagon? There's a bandwagon leaving over here. Maybe we get on that one. And it doesn't necessarily, you don't need to jump in without first experimenting. That's another thing. I mean, I think the more you learn, you make better decisions about what's relevant for your business and for your customers.
One of our clients sells a lot of chicken. And the way they look at innovation is they don't necessarily want to be first to market. It's not about that. It's being relevant and being efficient and smart to market. Yep. So it doesn't matter how long they lag behind whoever's first, as long as they make sure that when they do get there, that it makes sense.
Yep. Nothing wrong with being a fast follower.
And with AI, I would also say, in taking some of those things we just talked about, does it make sense for your brand? Just because your consumers might not be where AI is. So it's how do you make it relevant for your brand? And then to your point, what's too big of a leap and what's the right leap for where you are as a company? Yeah. So those things. I think we're about at time, so I just wanted to know if you had any other parting thoughts.
Keep your head down, I guess. I mean, it's coming. It's coming. It's just a question of when and where you're going to be impacted by it. But I mean, I think, like I said, like I started off, I am definitely an optimist about these things. I don't fall into that camp of what I call the Terminator camp. I don't think that we're on the precipice of Schwarzenegger blowing through the doors over there anytime soon. But I do think that it is. I'm also not Pollyanna-ish about this. I think it warrants your time and investment. And so you've got, even if it's just a skunk works in your business, trying to get your hands around it, play with it, find ways to make it relevant for your customers, it's time. I mean, you can't really sit on the sidelines, I guess is the other part of it. But get on the field. I tell people all the time, get out of the stands, either coach or get on the field. That's how you win, right? Yep. It's not fun to be a color commentator unless you're getting paid a lot of money by ESPN.
Right. True.
Right.
So I wanted to thank everybody for joining today. I appreciate the attention. Hope you found this useful. We will be sending out a recording of it for those of you who registered, and thank you for joining.
Thank you.
Bourbon.
That was good.